the sensation of liberation will come when you allow your heart to break through the cages of lies that you yourself have wrapped around it. This begins with a recognition, compassionate, that in all likelihood you told yourself the lies from a place of wounding. So that the lies are actually put in place for the sake of protection. Because living in this reality where pain is in a state of ubiquity and deceit in a state of absolute chaos, our hearts have learned to guard themselves, to protect the sacred jewel of our souls. The love that keeps sanctity alive on this earth. Does that mean that lying is okay? Lying to yourself, lying to others? Absolutely not. Does that mean that we need to be frustrated, hateful, spiteful, and carry narratives of self-negation and self-annihilation towards the wounded parts of ourselves that initiated the lies? No. We dig into the lies, we look into their eyes, and we witness underneath the layers of deceit the woundedness, the wounds that are concealed beneath the walls and cages of our own self-imprisonment. This happens on the microcosmic level, where you lie to yourself and where you wrap yourself in heart walls that prevent your soul's soulful expression, grand expression, passionate expression from coming into fruition. This also happens on the macrocosmic level, where all of the lies of our reality are being revealed. It is so abundantly clear that so many of the systems of our reality are built upon deceit, are built as networks of deceit to keep us in veils of illusion, to keep our Mother Earth being anagrammatic with heart, wrapped in this false cocoon of lies. Might this cocoon be made of silicon? That is a question I put into the air. For now, let breaths of truth dissolve any falsity that is wrapped and enmeshed within the ethernets, within the worldwide web of deceit, and of all the truths that come to dissolve that deceit from within. And let this be a prayer of dissolution, of deceit, of disillusion, so that truth may be that which breaks us free. Truth being, of course, God, and God being, of course, love, and love being, of course, within the heart. Of course, as in matter of fact. Of course, as in the course on which we are steadily walking, however slowly or fast, each at our own levels of our journey. Because lying creates a false sense of comfort and safety, which is actually illusory and fleeting. Something that you can hold on to, something that you can cling to externally to avoid having to face the pain and feel the pain that is nestled within your heart, that is nestled within your body, that is nestled within the sacred somatic intelligence of who you are. Heartbeat by heartbeat. The inner networks and currents of your living waters, storing the memories of the past somatically in the form of tensions, calling forth attention and intention so that you may dive into the woundedness itself. Now, of course, the layers of protection are there. And first, you bring yourself to a level of awareness on the microcosmic level. Where am I lying to myself? Where am I lying to myself? Where are you lying to yourself? Is the answer obvious? Is it something that you know, an old story that you've been running? It's like, yeah, I know. I've been stuck in this loop. I've been telling myself that I can't do this because I don't have that. I've been tolerating a particular intolerable situation and telling myself that it's tolerable, when in fact, it feels like my soul is dying here. On a personal level, my whole life has been such a situation for the past year or so. Certain ways in which I live, where some part of me tolerates it. Constriction, smallness, being in consensual agreement with particular systems, with particular ways of getting money, having to do this in order to have the money, in order to survive and to live. These are not merely lies that we ourselves tell to ourselves. They are also lies that we've inherited. They are wounds that we've inherited. They are pains. They are karmic chains which we've inherited. So on one hand, grace, compassion, and the acceptance that the awareness itself of bringing these things to the light is the journey and the medicine of healing, of karmic healing, of ancestral healing, of spiritual healing, of embodied healing, and of the becoming of who you truly are. Wherein the perfection of God having woven this through the luminaries into your microcosmic body to turn your wound itself into your wand with which you heal the world by first healing yourself. That was on the one hand. On the other hand, when you witness with this awareness, with this compassion, with this love towards yourself, with the recognition that the lies themselves conceal the wounds which are difficult to confront, you look at the lies with a sword of discernment and of dissolution, and you slice them open. And the sword is one of truth, and it's one of blessedness, because this sword is Christ's sword, which he has gifted us with the breath of his truth. In the elemental language of the tarot and of astrology, the swords represent air, intellect, reason, discernment. The dance of duality, Libra, Gemini, the twins, Pisces, the two fish. The duality between truth and deceit means that any lie that reveals itself, any falsity that presents itself, can and will be dissolved when you bring truth to it, when you breathe truth against it, through it, into it, that it dissolve from within. So if there's a cocoon of falsity wrapped around our earth, breaths of truth can dissolve it. And the breaths themselves are our butterfly wings crystallizing as the Christ essence of our being. Christ essence, convalescence, not a form of convoluting and confusion, but a form of conviviality, a form of conflagration. Conflagration, if you don't know what that word is, means a coming into flame, an engulfing into fire. When you light the spark and then the flame ignites and it bursts. So that as you breathe these breaths of truth, you are breathing upon the flames of truth. And now, I'm a little lost in the exactitudes of my mythologies and of my mythological knowledge. But I do believe that many mythological texts, the Bible included, talk about an Armageddon, which is a purification by fire, wherein the fire incinerates all that is false and makes space for the heavenly truth to come. Now, I'm only going to speak about this briefly, unless I ramble on because I'm following the stream. But one of my initiations and spiritual awakenings was years ago, completely sober, no entheogens, no drugs, no hallucinations. I had a dream. And in the dream, there was a village, and I hiked to the top of the mountain from the village. And there was the most beautiful sunrise that you could possibly imagine, overlooking a horizon of endless, jagged, snow-capped peaks. And the sun was rising over the horizon of mountain stone, the earth herself. And as the sun was rising, I could feel the conviviality. Viviality meaning alive. And so conviviality meaning alive together. The co-constituency of my soul and body, and the soul and body of the world, and the soul and body of the rising sun, and the interconnectedness of all consciousness through living fiery breath. As the sun was rising, I could feel this interconnection of absolutely infinite loving consciousness rising and rising in my body. And I could feel how I was the entire circular horizon of the mountains themselves. I was the village, I was the earth, I was my soul, I was God, not God in a egoic I am God sense, but I was the all. I was enmeshed in my sacred union with the divine. And as the sun was rising over the mountains, this feeling of interconnectedness and absolutely infinite, irrevocable love was rising in me, in my body. And as the sun rose, the mountains themselves were set ablaze on the horizon. And then I saw this great fire coming from the horizon towards me, engulfing the entire world. And I was like, oh, the world is catching on fire. I better go warn the villagers that the world's on fire. And so I started running down the mountains. And as I'm running down, my footsteps feel the earth dissolving into this ever-loving flame, a flame of God. And the flame was rising up my feet as I'm taking the steps, and I get to the village and I'm yelling at everyone in the village, hey, can't you guys see that the world is on fire? The world is on fire. The world is on fire. Do something, like, look alive. And everyone's just going on about their day. Like, oh, everything's fine. Everything's normal. And I'm yelling to them. And I'm yelling and I'm yelling and I'm yelling. And as I yell, the flames engulf me and turn into this geometric circle of absolute, beautiful, geometric perfection, luminous, golden, beaming, radiant, with the absolute crescendo of that rising effervescence of love of which I was speaking with the rising sun. The sun representing consciousness, the infinitude of absolute, infinite, loving consciousness manifested itself as this geometrical circle of perfection. And the climax hit as it turned into this circle. And when this circle appeared, my eyes opened and I awoke in my bed. And on the ceiling was that circle of geometric perfection, there with my body still paralyzed, feeling this interconnected sphere of absolutely infinite conscious love. And it hung there on the ceiling for like a full minute with my body immobile, witnessing what in retrospect was likely a geometric mirror of my own soul. Because I am the flame. I am Sagittarius. In my luminary embodiment, I have 5 Sagittarius placements. And the sacred fire is something which I am learning to remember within me. Now, I said I was going to be short about this, but here I am. And I forget what I was talking about. With our breaths, I'm going to breathe. With our breaths, we breathe upon this conflagration. We breathe upon this fire that is meant to dissolve all falsity, all ignorance, all self-deceit, and all other deceit with truth. And what does fire do? Fire burns. And if you are not working with the fire properly and prayerfully, the fire will incinerate you. And you will perish and become ash. Whereupon you have a choice to just dissolve into the flame or become the phoenix that rises from the flame, from the ashes, and takes flight. To bring this back, ignore this advertisement. To bring this back to the ways in which you lie to yourself, to the ways in which I lie to myself, to the ways in which humans lie to themselves and co-create networks of deceit and falsity in the world. Breath and flame, discernment and divinely led destruction can be intentionally oriented towards the chains of deceit themselves. If you have wrapped your heart in walls of lies which you have told to yourself, the breath and the flame of your awareness can be aimed with Sagittarian arrows, or whatever arrows and swords you need, of eros, felt emotion, both spoken and then somatically felt, can then burn away those chains, can then burn away all of the delusions which you have woven and concretized and calcified into somatic constriction and contractual obligation within your body. The pains that you feel, the tensions, you breathe that sacred fire into them. And you dissolve them into ash. Now, while I am feeling a particular pull and inspiration and obligation to bring in the elements of water and earth, I simply affirm that they have been here all along. And so I need not speak of them, because they've spoken on their own behalf silently. Notice the places in which you lie to yourself, the places in which you have lied to yourself in the past, the places where you still lie to yourself today, and the places where you currently lie to yourself in telling you that you are going to perpetuate this lie and be imprisoned by it forever. Notice the lie itself and come into the awareness: this is not actually true. This story that I've been telling myself for days, weeks, months, years, lifetimes. Allow yourself the right to first notice this is a lie. And because it is a lie, I have the right, God-given, to let it go and to dissolve it by asking, what is the truth that the lie conceals, on one hand, and on the second hand, speaking truth in such a way that dissolves the lie, that dissolves the walls that the lies have created, and that dissolves anything that stands in the way of the truth. Now, the truth is itself likely a wound. And so you have then the opportunity to dive into the wounds. We have worked with the breath. We have worked with the flame. Here comes the water. The water of feeling. The water of feeling your emotions. The water of feeling the inner waters of your body, of your sanctity, of your blood, which carries the entire memory of your ancestral lineage. And you feel these waters and you let them move. And the water will move through the concretized places of stagnancy, perhaps elements of earth. And the water can begin to carve at the calcifications. Now, emotions, as energy in motion, is made of water. And when you are ready, when you have gone deeply enough into your waters, into your feelings, water can flow from your eyes to instigate and initiate a process of cleansing, purification, and renewal and release. And as the waters flow in tears upon the earthly terrain of your skin, not only is the water within your eyes then purified and replaced so that with new vision you may begin to perceive your reality and thus generate a new reality, because as you see reality, reality sees you. As you see reality, reality is, at least within your microcosm. Not only are your eyes and their waters purified and cleansed and renewed and reestablished, and then you become a new and improved, less deceitful and more truthful version of yourself, more emotionally in tune with your heart. But the waters flow like waterfalls upon the earthly terrain of your skin, your epidermis, your tactile connection to the living, breathing tangibility of the earth, the hourglass sands of living in the temporal realm, however illusory it may be in some layers, however real it may be in others. Discernment. The waterfalls of your tears flow upon the earthly surface of your mountainous terrain, your epidermis. And here flowers begin to bloom. Life is resurrected. Where, as you may see, here I have these whatever you call these bags under my eyes of this tiredness which I've been imposing upon myself by being in tolerance with particular patterns of behavior and living with this emotionally codependent dog that comes to wake me up every morning and being like, well, this is okay, lying to myself and telling myself, I will tolerate this. Some part of me tolerates this. The tears flow. And the places where emanations of death, emanations of imbalance, of lack of harmony, can be composted and turn into the soil that then nourishes resurrection, that nourishes renewal, that nourishes all of these flowers and these plants coming into being. And you become alive, and your skin emanates not just physically, although you may not have literal physical flowers blooming from your skin and your earthly terrain, but these metaphysical, ethereal flowers blooming, because, oh my God, as above, so below. The cellular healing that takes place when you dissolve your inner cages of deceit with truth happens on the most microscopic, microbic, microcosmic level, and then it ripples outward and upward into the realms above. It happens within your cells, it happens within your blood, it happens within your tissue, it happens within your entire body. And all of this is your soul flower coming into bloom. And each little microbic instantiation of floral blooming is actually your universal, infinitely vast, infinitely connected to God soul. Your soul is a flower designed perfectly and uniquely by God. And it is infinite, and it is vast, and it is expansive, and it is with God in absolute, irrevocable, loving union. Here, we are finite, And yet, that infinite flower exists in each one of your cells in resurrective bloom. So that when your tears flow upon your skin, upon the mountains of your skin, the mountain meadows of the terrain of your body, hold a trillion little flowers of your own infinite soul, resurrecting into bloom. And this is what happens when you confront intellectually, soulfully, with awareness, as well as somatically, and in every layer of reality that you need to, you confront the walls which you have created with deceit, and you dissolve them with truth. You dissolve them by speaking truth to them, and you dissolve them by digging into them and destroying them with whatever methods you need to, and getting at the truth which they conceal. And this is healing. This is the metaphysics of healing. This is the micro, macro, cosmic metaphysics of healing. This is why deceit exists. Because of wounds. Because of wounds of separation from God. When in Genesis, in the Garden of Eden, we chose to walk away from God and into the knowledge of good and evil, that was pain. That was the deepest pain that is even possible. It is why pain even exists. And so you dig. You dig into that inherited lie, and you dig into all of the inheritances of lying and wounds which you carry within your blood. And you pray for reunion with God, for the return to Eden. And you called it in a way that is cellular. And as I was saying, this is the metaphysical mechanism of healing itself. It happens on the micro level, and then it ripples into the macro level. And the finite is connected to the infinite, and the infinite is connected to the finite. So any work that you do in the finite will impact the parts of you in the infinite. And any work that you do in the infinite will influence parts of you in the finite. Anyway, I've rambled. All of this is to say, look at the parts in which you lie to yourself and dissolve them with truth, and discover the truths which they conceal. That is the simple way. And it begins with awareness. And the awareness then becomes somatic, it becomes felt, it becomes embodied, and it becomes chosen. And the more you choose it, and you cultivate the seeds of that choosing with your transcendental, God-given free will, then that is the choosing of the resurrection. That is the alignment to Christ. That is reunion with God, retemplating consciousness itself, the earth herself, from within. All towards truth, alignment with God, reunion with God, tears of healing, dissolution of parasitic forms of consciousness, and a rebalancing into the innate harmony of being, which is absolute union with God. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to go swim in the ocean, and I'm going to feel into all of these words and embody them. Thank you. Blessings be with you.